Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob,
And welcome to the Help Me, I'm Middle-Aged podcast.
where you can find fun, exciting things about being middle-aged.
Oh, you're going to find things about us and about yourself you never thought you knew.
Hold on, come along for the ride. It's going to be fun.
Welcome to the Help Me, I'm Middle-Aged podcast. My name is Rob.
And I'm Rob too.
And today we have a special guest. We have Dan Lacey, the author of The Rockstar Used Car Dealer, How to Solve the Top 10 Biggest Problems of All Used Car Dealers Face. Welcome, Dan.
Hi,
Hi guys. Hi, Rob and
Good.
Rob.
Hey, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming on the podcast from beautiful Las Vegas. Right?
Yes, it is always beautiful. It's just always hot too.
Yeah.
Well, to let the audience know, like me and Dan have known each other for about 30 years. We're one of those distant relatives, weddings and funerals. And we never get to see each other enough, but every time we do, we enjoy each other's company. And I heard that he wrote this great book, and I just wanted to have him on the podcast. And we wanted to basically start, Dan, with you basically were born into a business, right? And
Yes.
how that evolution happened, and it built you as a person. And throughout this book, which I recommend our audience purchase, it's a really good book. And by the way, we're going to put the link for Dan's website where you can purchase the book in the show notes of the podcast. But if you could just talk about what it was like in that industry, what it was like as a child, and you were a third generation used car dealer.
Right. It goes way back.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, my first foray into the used car business was not a very positive one. We go back, unfortunately, to the 70s, and it was mid-70s, and I just remember everyone was crowded around the TV set. And by the look on everyone's face, I could just tell, isn't this supposed to be a happy thing? My father was going to be on the news. Well, it turns out it was not a happy thing. My father, as we affectionately always called Pop, Pop was he was something else. He was, they broke the mold when they made him. Well, what happened was we wind up seeing on the news that night that a sting in Little Ferry, New Jersey, wind up getting all of these used car dealers that are arrested now and being fined and all these things for rolling back odometers. So what could be worse than that? I mean, used car dealer and rolling back odometers really is the worst thing that really people can do. And so that was unfortunately my first experience with the used car business. So I wasn't happy about that. I was quite embarrassed by that. So much so that we had the phone started ringing in the house. And ringing. Well, a lot of them were relatives. A lot of them were neighbors. One of them was one of my friends. And I was only 10 at the time. And this little stinker calls up and he says, "Hey, your father's famous."
Oh man! Wow!
Oh.
Wow!
So those
That's
were
crazy.
Not good days.
Yeah, when Rob was telling me where the what was it, Route 46 you guys were on?
Route 46, yeah.
Okay, and anybody who knows the Bergen County area, I mean, you think used car dealership in northern New Jersey, Bergen County, that's a making of a sitcom as far as I'm concerned. You guys could probably run with that. But
I was actually approached to do that.
Really?
It or not. Yeah, I was approached to do that. Yeah.
Wow.
And I said, no, I'm too busy. This was a few years. This is about 15 years or more ago. Yeah.
Wow. So what was it like after that experience? Because how did your dad cope with that? In other words, well, I guess for him it was a little easier because they didn't have Google back then. So no one could Google his used car lot and see that, so once the
no
news
Yelp.
cycle was over, right? No Yelp. No, once the news cycle was over, he could continue. But what was that like as far as the customers coming in and rebuilding the brand? What was that like?
Well, so I did ask my father about that years ago, years later. And, I said, Dad, first of all, what the hell? Why did you do that? And so I could imitate my father pretty well. He would say, Dan, I mean, it's just what everyone did. I mean, it's not a big deal. I'm like, Dad, it was a big deal. He goes, no. We used to have this guy. His name was Kickback Charlie. He would kick back the odometers, and he would charge you like $100 a car. He went from dealer to dealer to dealer to dealer. Okay, Pop, if that's, what you feel. So I said, well, how did you get out of it? Well, he said, what I did was, and man, he was crafty. He said, I wind up having an attorney. My attorney, I was through the court. I was told that I had to reach out to all of our customers to let them know maybe we rolled back the odometer. So he wound up having his attorney send letters in a certain way to each of these customers, almost looking like they were being sued. So then a lot of people probably just got nervous and threw the thing out. So I said, well, whatever happened? And he said, I really only had maybe 2 people ever come back. He goes, really, no one ever came back. Wow. So I think that's an amazing testimony of my father and his way to get over. He was the quintessential used car dealer. But my start was so embarrassing that honestly, I wanted nothing to do with the used car business. I didn't want to go, I didn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. So it wasn't until I turned 15 and the advent, you guys are 50s, right?
Right.
You remember the advent of mopeds. Remember the
mopeds? Yes.
So the mopeds, my father started selling, and they weren't regulated back then. You didn't need a license. You didn't even need a helmet. Crazy, but true, right? So he said, look, you're 15. I'll give you a moped. Why don't you go back and forth, work for me? You can, pick up some cash. And okay, all right. So I did that. So from 15 forward, I started work there. And, that was my initial job was, pretty much washing the white walls on all the tires. So
started at the
that's
bottom.
how I got into it.
Right. Yeah.
So you started at the bottom of the business from detailing cars as a kid, learning. But throughout the book, though, it sounded like there was a point in your late teens, early 20s where you didn't want to do this. You went out to California and you sort of run as far away from the Little Ferry, New Jersey, without getting wet, heading west, all the way to San Diego, California. And so, what was that like, and how did that experience?
Well, I mean, it was, so you're right. And when I was in my later teens, I worked there, and I was. It turns out I was very good at selling. I didn't know. All I know is that I wanted to be a rock star. That's what I wanted to do with my life. Hence the name of the book, The Rockstar Used Car Dealer. That's a play on words, because really what I wanted to be was I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be a drummer. I wanted to be in a rock band. And I was serious about it. And so I wind up going out. I said goodbye. I said, listen, I'm going out to California. I'm going to find the end of the rainbow. I wind up going out there, and my first job, I said, well, let me just get some extra income coming in here while I'm a struggling artist. I worked at SeaWorld. My friends say, what'd you do, clean up Shamu's poop? I mean, what do you do out there, right?
That's most rock stars' first stepping stone.
Yes, Shamu.
So I started to, I started working there, and boy, that got old real fast. I only lasted a few weeks, I think. And then I said, well, I guess I have to go back to the one thing that I really know, that I've been doing for the last several years, which is selling cars. So that's what I did. I went back. I worked at a new car store, Kearney Mesa. As New Jerseyans, we say Kearney. They
Right.
say Kearney. Kearney
Ah.
Mesa Dodge. I got corrected many times.
They got it wrong, but that's okay.
They got right. So that's what happened. I wind up working there, and my claim to fame is I sold 2 brandy new vehicles, 1987 vehicles. One was a Dodge Daytona. Another one was a very expensive at the time. I think it was like $25,000 custom van, a brand new 87 Dodge custom van, conversion van. And my commissions for the day were $87. And I said, I'm done. I'm out of here.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, you get an education, you don't know why we go through life with these different experiences, but all of these things continued along in through my journey, even to the present. And it's amazing how things do connect.
Right. Right. So when did you come back to Jersey?
Well, so I wind up, my father wind up, things caught up with him, because if you want to play with fire, you're going to get burned. And he had a certain mentality as being this used car dealer. I'm going to screw the public, which was his mantra. And he was also going to screw the employees. So at that, that's how he was. And
he was working both sides.
he is, yeah. But it caught up with him, because when I came back for Christmas vacation, he finally, for the first time, looked destitute. And he said, look, if you want to come back to work for me, I will pay you like a real person. I remember him saying that.
How
because
noble.
he knew I was making peanuts, working for him. I might as well go back to Shamu.
Oh man.
So that I feel like this is like a scene, like you wanted to run, head out to California, pursue your dreams, but that family business somehow at that
Pulls you
Christmas
back.
break sort of sucked you back in.
It did. So, my pay at the time was real enticing. Basically put, I would get $100 base, $100 per car I sold, and different bonuses, different bonus levels. So
Right.
at that time, I mean, I was only 21, 22 years old. And as anyone in the car business knows, working in the car business is like, I guess, like a drug. You get hooked by the money, and then you can't get out. And it's very difficult. I've seen so many people leave the business or try to leave the business, but then end up coming back because they get used to that taste of money. So he did. He paid me well, and it wasn't uncommon for me as a 22-year-old to make $1,500 or $2,000, at that time. So I just said, look, if this is my life, I can't. First of all, I'm not you. I have integrity. I cannot do the things that you've done. And it's kind of like, if anyone knows working for family, it's like beating your head against the wall.
Sure.
You're able to say things without any filter. Try to do that with your boss, right?
Right.
So I said, if I'm going to come back, things have got to change. And as is typical for me, I had to earn everything in life. So what I'm saying is, when I went there, the place was a wreck. The place could have held like 80 vehicles on the lot. We were down to about half of that. The cars that were there were just junk. It was just garbage. There was no air conditioning, no refrigerator. I mean, you couldn't even bring in a lunch. I mean, this is how
Basic
he
stuff.
worked. And he wound up getting, like I said, things got, came back, around to haunt him. But he hired a lot of bad people, and they wind up stealing from him. So he said, if you come back, I'll pay you like a real person. And so that's what, made me come back, actually, after all that.
Now, along the Route 46 corridor, there were a lot of versions of used car dealerships, right? At the same time? You guys were not isolated and the only ones.
You are so right, Rob. And this is one thing I've always said, a little bit of a pat on the back because of this. I say, if you're a hairdresser and you have a salon, try having your salon around 39 other salons.
Right.
If you're an attorney, try putting up a storefront around 39 other attorneys. It's what our life was like. For the good, we had 40 of us used car dealers in a straight stretch. It's not even any turns, just a straight stretch of 3 miles. And that was good, right? Because then people knew that if you wanted to go to, as affectionately they called us, the den of thieves. My father helped add to that, but what can I say? But yeah, so if, it was, pretty, those days, those earlier days were kind of fun, and to a certain degree, because where we were located was 5 miles west of New York City. So we used to see a lot of the folks from the city going eastbound, and you could literally see them because, their license plates, and we would see them at the lot across the street from us. And then we'd say, okay, remember that car. And sure as anything, they'd eventually go make a loop, and then they would be on our side. So you're right. There are a lot of car dealers work to the better, work to the detriment. You had to make yourself stand out.
Yeah. And go ahead, Rob.
I was saying, as you went through the book, what I really found fascinating was your ability to reinvent what you were doing and stand out. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of marketing tips for other small businesses that can carry over to whatever you're doing in this book. I mean, when he says it's how to solve the top 10 biggest problems of all used car dealers, it's true. So it's a good read if you're in the industry or not in the industry. But what I liked about it was you kept looking at things just a little bit different. You weren't following the pack, and some of those little tidbits that you use to try and get more customers to come on the lot. If you could just touch on a few of those, because I thought there was a lot of value in that.
You're absolutely right, Rob. And so for folks that really have no connection or no feeling or no interest in the used car business, I get that. But this book really is about being a small business owner. And any business that you're in, anyone that has a small business, they know how difficult it is to make money on a regular basis. You can have your peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys. And so those were a lot of the things. You're right. What I had to do to stand out, because if not, I always said people look the same. If you were driving down the road, you have car dealers on the left, car dealers on the right. You drive, you look, you say, I don't know. They all look the same to me, right? So we had to find ways to stand out. And that was always my biggest issue. How do you stand out? So I started thinking about things a little bit before everyone else. I was the first one to bring financing. Of course, my father said, you can never do that, Dan. You can't finance these people. They're not credit worthy. I was able to do that. Once I did that, people copied. from the different tricks and things that we used. One of my favorite stories is we have in New Jersey, we all know, and Oregon, you don't have to pump your own gas. So you roll up to a gas station attendant, and you get to know them or what have you. So one day I was not feeling very good mentally. I was really kind of bummed out. Business was really awful, and we just weren't making money. We were losing money. But I was running the show, and I was everything. I had every hat on, right? So I wind up going over to get gas in the gas can, and the guy says, "Hey, how you doing, Dan?" And I said, not that good. Things are slow. And he goes, "You know what you guys got to do? I tell you what you got to do." I'm like, oh my goodness, what? You're pumping gas and you're going to tell me I'm running the show here, And I thought that way, and I caught myself and I listened to him. And that has become one of my best traits, is that I know, and I never feel that I know everything. Just don't. If you empty your cup of knowledge, you get to say, oh, and it's hard to do. It's hard to humble yourself to say, all right, I don't know that. Go ahead, tell me, teach me. And if you're really willing, you get to learn. So this kid says, you got to put up banners all over. Okay, all right. I walk away saying, all right, this kid has got, he's got rocks in his head, but I caught myself and I said, no, stop. Listen to his message. And so I did. And I said, all right, he's right. Let me go back and look at things from his perspective now. Okay, we could put like a banner there. I'll stretch it in between those two trees, between those poles over there, So I did. I wind up getting these banners custom made. And it really, 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 really helped. It added a lot of pizzazz. But boy, oh boy, when Pop got that bill, $1,500 bill for banners, I'm trying to keep it clean here, but he cuffed me out real good.
So, Dan, when were you making the switch to you running the show versus him running the show? Like what age?
That's a great question too, Rob. Yeah, I mean, I was always running the show from when I came back from California. So when I came back, it was all me. He really didn't have anyone else. Me, and I had, believe it or not, I worked alongside guys that had HIV. They were HIV positive. I mean, this is the kind of people that he hired. They would cut themselves, and I would go for a doorknob. I see blood on the doorknob. Tony, and he'd go, "I'm sorry, kid. I'm sorry." He'll take his shirt and wipe it off, Wow. I mean, you're right. So I was always running the show, but little by little, I started making my mark and I started making my change and got rid of a lot of that element. And it wasn't until I was I would say I was about 32, and then I bought the business from my father, where then I could say, listen, I'll pay you, just stay quiet. And so that's what happened.
And what do they call that? Getting the key?
Say it again.
What is it called? Getting the keys, or you refer to it as something like that?
Yeah. So in the used car business, these landowners, they know that you cannot just pop up a used car dealership wherever you want. They know that. You can for a pizzeria, you can for a hair salon, right? But for a used car dealership, the towns don't want you because you're ugly. You're bringing all this traffic and craziness and, flags and banners, and they don't like us. So at that point, that's exactly, what happened as we were going along. I mean, we come to find out that, people really don't, they didn't want us around. And so, it was a tough thing trying to get through all of that. So what happened was people then started to come to me and they would say, listen, we would like to sell our business. So what that business meant was you're not buying the inventory, you're not buying the real estate. Well, what's left? You're just buying the key. The key is the right to do business at one of these used car lots. And the key at that time, you know, I was paying like an unheralded amount of money. I mean, I was paying $80,000 just for the key. That was no inventory or anything. And of course, my father thought I lost my mind for that too. But yeah.
When you went to owning one dealership, one used car lot, to multiple used car lots, that required a lot of management skills, a lot of just your level of responsibility went through the roof. So how did you, I mean, how did that all work?
Another great question too, Rob, because you're right. And in this business, you're dealing with a lot of cash.
Right.
And my motto was that I had to take care of these people. I did not want to do what my father did to them. I tried to hire people with character. From there, I was able to say, okay, look, you know, I'm going to pay you handsomely, make sure that, you know, you keep it real. But if you don't, okay, you can steal from me. You're going to get caught. I used to say that on a regular basis. It may not be today. It may not be next week. You're not going to make me poor. You're going to get caught and you're going to be out of a job. Now, do you want a job or do you want a home? It's your choice. So these are pretty much how I hired people, based on the fact that they really did want a home. So as long as you know that, then you know that, you know, people are there for the long run. And, you know, you see your people who are not. So once you have that in place, then we were able to start branching out to these other locations, like you said. Once we had those locations, the way that I always looked at it is, if you expect all the money to come to you, they're really not going to care. They're really not going to work hard. So even though it was all my money, even though it was all my money for the inventory and setting everything up, I fronted everything there. I had to keep track of the inventory bottom number, right? Because we didn't want to see that getting less and less. And then at that point, I gave them huge incentives monetarily. And that's where they're like, this is awesome. I'm running my own business, basically making money without ever having to put money there. So that's actually how I got past all that with the multiple locations I had.
One of the things that stood out to me was that you had them kind of policing the lots and things and keeping it clean, so that they actually sounded like they built up some sort of internal motivation, you know, to monitor themselves too, which I thought was great. I think that was great. You know, be on the lookout for things that can be improved, that they can do. So. Yeah,
and you're right. And that again is the environment where we're all together. Mm-hmm. I took very good care of my people. When they worked for me, they were literally there 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. I mean, these people were there for a long time. You know, take them out to big dinners. At Christmas, which was nice, I used to do something called an auction. So it was kind of fun. I would spend thousands of dollars on multiple gifts, you know, from TVs and what have you. And how it would actually work would be from November 1st through December, whatever good things you did, whether it was, you know, picking up garbage, whether it was selling a car, making a good profit on it, you know, whatever it was that you did, you got these phony dollars. And so with that, they would then amass these phony dollars preparing for that Christmas auction. So let me tell you, they would wind up coming up to me all the time. I'm like, I took out the garbage. Nobody asked me to. It was a mess. You know, all right, here's a, you know. So
right.
We made that kind of an environment. And then, yeah, I mean, then when it came time for the Christmas auction, I mean, they went crazy. So, you know, we would turn around and say, I have a a television here. Okay, I'm gonna save my money for that TV, or a case of beer. I'll give you $300 for the case of beer.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's really smart. Yeah.
So now that's what I was saying. Like I encourage people to get the book, because even if you're not in the used car business, you have no desire to ever be in the business, there's a lot of these little nuggets in there that could help you in whatever line of work you're in. It's really, really, really a good read. I would encourage our audience to purchase it. But let me ask you another question. So at what point, you were there in that Little Ferry area for 37 years. So at what point did you start to say, okay, well, I gotta figure out an exit path here?
Yeah, I mean, well, really and you're right. And, everyone, all good things come to an end. And I really hated the way things evolved. When I first started in the 80s, it was cash on the barrelhead, a lot of negotiation. But then fast forward to the future, we were then basically bankers. I had millions of dollars of my own money out on the road. Basically, we were doing our own financing, buy here, pay here. And with Buy Here, Pay Here, which will be my next book, everything is more. Now, when I say everything, I mean everything. Profit, awesome. Money in your pocket, awesome. But so are the lawsuits. So are the people trying to screw you. So are the inventory, the employees, the insurance, that you just go on and on. Everything is more, not just the good. So that's when I said, I think I'm done. I was fortunate enough, to be in the business 37 years. I always felt like, anyone can make a lot of money for a short amount of time, anyone. But to do that over an extended period of time, it takes a little bit of skill in any business that we have. So I sold everything in 2016, and there are times I really miss it, but with my new business now, I don't miss it. I get to talk to used car dealers all day long.
So do you sometimes go back? I mean, this is a really tough question, but we know your love for music, your passion. You titled your book "The Rock Star Used Car Dealer." Do you wish maybe you stayed in California a little longer, maybe made a run at it, or does it ever go back and think about those decisions? Because I mean, you get that fork in the road, and when you came home that Christmas, decisions were made. Next 30-something years of your life was planned out. Is that, you get a little bit of that, or do you do anything with music today?
It really, no, I guess you could say I'm a wannabe. I'm now in my 50s. I'm just a wannabe. I just look the part. That's all. Everybody says, cut your hair. I say, no, I have it. I'm going to grow it. But no, I mean, it's a funny thing, Rob. I mean, we believe in a higher power, and it is amazing. Like you and Rob, you guys do a great show. Your podcast is incredible. I think it really fills a void. I don't think there's really anyone else out there that really is tackling what's the essence of where we are. You and Rob and me, we're all in our 50s. We all have that certain point in life where we go, okay, now we've done a lot. We've seen a lot. What's to happen, right? I mean, we can go any day now, right? Because we're super old, right? As per our kids, we're super old.
Yep.
But you start to think about, your life, and you reflect back on that. And no, I don't ever for a minute ever wished that I was not in the used car business. So it's a funny turnaround, because when I started, I said, no way. No, I will never be here. Never. Did I say never? Never. And, you know, you never know where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
You know?
So Dan, I noticed in the book it's about your new adventure, and part of this podcast, the name of this podcast, Help Me, I'm Middle Aged. So you got to that middle age point, you decided, you know, I'm packing up, I'm leaving New Jersey, I'm liquidating, selling my business. I'm going to start a new business on the other side of the country in Nevada. So where did the inspiration come from? I think it's a great idea, because if you can explain what you're doing now, but you're really built for what you're doing now, because your customer base basically is what you did. So how does that work, and how are you enjoying that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I really do love it. So I'll tell you a little bit about what it is that we do. So when I first came out, I said, you know, I'm pretty fortunate. I really don't have to do much. But I said, I can't sit around and do nothing all day. So I started to reflect about the used car business, of course, and so many different issues that I had with insurance. And I lost a lot of money because my insurance agent thought he knew my business, but really didn't know my business. He was probably also insuring nail salons and plumbers and things of that nature. And that's great. And that's wonderful. And everyone needs insurance, but the used car business is very, very different. And so I started thinking about a lot of those things and how I lost money. So I wind up opening my own insurance agency, and the name of the agency is WeLoveUsedCarDealers.com. So amazing, right? That should even be available, right?
Genius.
Genius.
Well, really no, because nobody loves the used car dealer.
I was going to say, yeah.
Right. So how's that going now? You building up a big book. You're talking to a lot of people around. You're in all 50 states.
Yeah, we're not quite in 50 yet. We're about in, I think 13 or 14 states already.
Okay.
But we're branching. People are finding us through, Instagram or Facebook or friends or referrals and things of that nature. And it's really, really good because I get to talk to the used car dealer. I feel like I'm in their business. And quite frankly, I feel their pain without having the pain. Because a lot of times they're, crying the blues. It's not an easy business, especially during this pandemic.
Well, what's the typical used car dealership issues now compared to back in like the 80s and 90s that they're having issues with, if they are?
Well, I mean, one of the biggest movements right now is actually a national movement against buy here, pay here. Mm-hmm. So for those of you that don't know, buy here, pay here is when you really don't have good enough credit to go to a bank, the dealership will actually finance the vehicle for you. So in essence, they'll get a small amount of a down payment plus taxes and tags, and then they'll roll the car, but you need to pay the used car dealer. Now, in a lot of states, you can charge up to 30% interest. So if you do not have good credit, that's what you're up against. Those kind of things are what send up the signals to attorneys. Then attorneys, they go to the government and they ask for change. So with this buy here, pay here, they even like New Jersey, for instance, we were allowed to put a GPS monitoring device in the car. And we were able to even put a cutoff switch. So if they didn't make their payment, the car would not start. So it does sound like cruel and unusual punishment, I guess you might say. But again, you're talking about here's our car. Here's what we charge for interest. We're going to put a GPS device in your car. We're going to put a tracking device in your car, but you only need $500 down for this six or seven or $8,000 car, and we're going to roll the car to you without even checking your credit. So that's the trade-off. But what the government doesn't know is that in any kind of retail business, for the most part, everything else is cheaper. If you have, again, going back to maybe a nail salon, you're buying nail polish, you're buying supplies for that nature. If you have a store that sells flowers, you're buying various flowers. If, you know, whatever the retail shop is, you have to have inventory. Our inventory, you know, for the most part, is usually $7,000 per car. So 7,000 times 10, only 10 cars, you're talking about $70,000, right? So that's where, you know, with this buy here, pay here, this movement has been going to crush a lot of used car dealers by way of these attorneys who want to sue you for E&O coverage, errors and omissions.
Wow. So there's a lot of turmoil in the industry right now.
There is, and these attorneys know it's easy money. I've seen a few of them out here that hit a few of my own customers, and that's what they do. They just target the E&O. They know they're going to find T's that aren't crossed, I's that aren't dotted, things that aren't within regulation of the government or the local government. They're going to find it and they're going to sue you. And that's what happens.
So because of your 37 years in the industry, you talk to your clientele, you're part therapist, you know exactly what they're going through, you can give them pointers. So you're adding a lot of value, maybe even way above insurance. You're just adding value because of your years of experience in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, let's say you have agent one and us. Agent one says, okay, you're a used car dealer. All right, I'll get you a garage policy. You're probably going to need about $1 million worth of coverage, but the state says you can get $100,000 worth of coverage. We'll put you at the $100,000 coverage. You're good. We'll get your vehicles covered. You're good. Now you use us. It's a whole different system. I know their business. My staff is trained about their business. So we know what questions to ask. Why? Because again, getting back, that's where I have been hurt. I never had E&O coverage, like I was just saying to Rob. I wind up having, and this was right before I sold the dealerships. I had an attorney take me to task and, didn't cross my T's, didn't dot my I's. Here's the story. This is a true story. Our customer put $700 down, wind up making $500 worth of payments, $1,200. Okay, that's the total money that they put down. They wind up suing and winning out of my pocket with my attorney fees, $40,000. That's what we're up against. Yeah. So that's one of those things where I don't just say, oh yeah, get E&O, get E&O. I tell them that story and they go, really? Yeah, really. I've had my place burned down. I've had my place, one day we came in, the snow collapsed the building. Our showroom, everything was gone. It was just all full of snow. There's something called business income and extra expenses. Okay, fortunately, my agent did put that on my policy. But what is that? Basically, the business income, they'll pay, the insurance company pays you to continue to run your business because you're sort of shut down. And the extra expenses, it gave, the insurance policy gave me money in which to set up trailers and get all of my networking done, to the trailer with the, the Wi-Fi hotspot, all that wonderful stuff that we had, and set everything up while putting other things in storage that didn't fit. They paid for all of that. So again, anything that can go wrong, I've lived it.
Wow.
Smart idea, man. Very smart.
Yeah.
Lived it. Are there more used car dealerships coming out, or is it a declining industry or level situation?
It's the same.
Yeah.
But sadly, it's not going to be the same. A lot of dealers are going to be put out of business in 10 years or so. And that's because of the likes of Carvana. Companies like Carvana, they just don't care. They're just like, okay, yeah, you want to sell your vehicle? Here you go. Here's a check. We'll just pick it up at your house. You want to buy a vehicle? No problem. We'll bring it to your house. If you don't like it, you don't owe us any money. People hate going to the used car dealer. They hate going to new car dealers. They hate going to any car dealers, right?
Right. Yeah.
But that makes it a really nice experience. I know a lot of companies in the past, you remember Saturn, they tried doing that. We don't haggle on price. Our prices are the best. Well, it sounded great, but they really weren't able to do it. Mm-hmm. But I think Carvana has found a way to do it. And sadly, I think used car dealers have really got to start thinking outside the box. Just like I had to do all those years when I had to fight off the public auto auction scare. They were all around us. When I had to fight leasing almost killed us, several times.
Right.
So,
see, it's constantly reinventing yourself.
Constantly.
Well, there's two things that I like from the book. The fact you keep learning and the accountability factors. It's you who are in control and you have to make the decisions. There's no victimization. So that I found very refreshing from a business owner, because a lot of business owners will say, oh, no, it's the economy, or, I always did it this way. It's going to work. I'm not going to try anything new. So I'm a business owner myself, and it really resonated with me with a lot of the stuff you were talking about. So I was very impressed with that.
I appreciate that. And you're right, Rob. I mean, then anyone has to take accountability, but you would be amazed how few people will.
Yeah. It's just easier to say I'm a victim or just keep doing it the way you should always did it and not try anything new. I mean, I'm sure not everything worked, right? So it's not like everything was perfect. But
I wish I had a nickel for every failure.
Yeah. But you failed all on your way to success, right? So can't complain about that.
Just keep trying. Just keep trying and trying and trying. And, just know that failure is going to be a part of the equation and the biggest part, actually.
Yeah. So tell me about disarm selling. And do you miss the pageantry of the performance? And you can abridge it as much as you'd like for the people who want to get the book, but I was very impressed with this.
That's funny. So yeah, I mean, like I was saying a little earlier, no one wants to be at a dealership. Nobody, whether it's new and definitely not used. Right. My father helped pave the way for people that hate used car dealers. So I said to myself, if I'm going to do this, I gotta be up. It's showtime, right? Just imagine an actor or an actress that goes on stage. They can't just turn around and go, man, I'm having a crappy day. All right, here I go. I'm on stage. You have to bring it. So there were those days you're feeling really down and you're feeling, maybe not in your right headspace. So I said, it's showtime. So what showtime was for me was silliness, was goofiness. And that's what helped evolve what like you say, like that I have termed disarm selling, because the people didn't want to be there, and you knew it immediately. They would get out of their car and have stink face. They would start looking around, and I was wacky. I mean, I come out, hey, how you doing? You know, like Eddie Murphy, you know, how you doing? And they'd be looking like, who the hell is this guy? You know?
You're like a carnival barker at the boardwalk.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my goodness. So, you know, it was one of those things that you really had to disarm them because they did not want to be there, and make it fun. And my favorite thing was, I would always say, listen, either way, we're friends. Don't worry about it. If you buy a car here or you don't, we're friends. Don't worry about it. And they loved that. People had always told me, I tell you what, I'm buying a car from you. I don't know if it's today or not, but I'm buying a car from you, because people love me because I wasn't that pain in the neck salesman. So for me, yeah, I mean, that was fun. I used to go up to the Spanish guys, which I happen to speak pretty fluent Spanish. I'm about 80%, 90% Spanish. And so I would go up to them and I would mangle the Spanish language. And I go, hola, caballos, which is horses. They're looking like, this stupid gringo, right? So I would say, hola, caballos, great pasta. And they're like, what is he saying, you know? It was just anything to get a laugh or to break them down. And that's why I said people used to come like this, ready to fight. And if you could just get them to drop their guard a little bit, they were ours.
So it's about building like a connection with people, taking down the.
It is. It is. It's really the old, you know, reverse psychology. You know, I wanted to make it a positive experience. I definitely wanted to sell a car. I mean, don't, you know, make no bones about it. I mean, I wanted to sell the car. But I will tell you, and this is, pardon me, this is something that I'm very, very proud of. People can say whether they worked for me, whether they knew me in the business, they can say a lot of negative things. Maybe they can say, he's too hard. He's a son of a bitch. You know, he's a tough one to work for. You know, they could say whatever they want to say, but no one could ever say I did anything unscrupulous. I never turned back odometers. Ever since when you know, that situation when I was a kid, I would never do it. I believe in karma, and I never screwed anyone like that. You know, any sort of thing like that, I just couldn't do. And truthfully, you know, there were times, right, you know, where customers sells you a car, and the car is just gorgeous. It's an old lady's car, literally the old quintessential old lady's car that has 110,000 miles on it. That could literally pass for 10,000 miles. The front of the title says 10 miles, okay? Flip the title over and it's empty. It is so easy to turn around at those days and just put 50,000 miles, 30,000 miles, and no one would ever question it, right? But I could never do it, and I never did do that. Never, ever, not even once. So
that's awesome. You know what, though? I think you well, first of all, you have morals and business ethics that you saw maybe your dad didn't have, and that was a valuable lesson that day on the 6 o'clock news. You know what I mean? You were like, it you know, definitely changed the way you looked at it. Yeah, and you did the right thing. And like you said, karma will come back and haunt you 1,000 times over.
I agree. You know, and it's those things, again, being as middle-aged men, you know, we reflect back on those times and say, what significance did that really have? What role did that really play in my life? And then you reflect and you go, I see, I get it now, you know?
Yeah, and the cool reflective glow, you can say, yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Well, what do you got, Rob?
Well, I was just curious, is there anything that's not in the book, a story or an event that happened that just totally blew your mind, that just our viewers would be like shocked to hear about the used cars situation?
So many. So many. I mean, you have those dealers that were, running a money laundering service, down the street. They were, laundering money, and they had all these high priced cars, and, they would be in and out of jail and those kind of things. And so, that was commonplace. There were times where, a lot of the guys wind up, getting on drugs. A lot of these guys were doing cocaine and bad things like that. So, because they had money in their pocket, they used to take a jet down to the auction. And I literally would watch this one guy. He would stand there at the auction where everyone is trying to be selective and picky. He would just go, raise his hand. Sold. He bought that one. The next car. Sold. He bought that one. Boom, 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 boom. He would buy 20, 30 cars right in a row. I mean, who does that, So, I mean, there were those stories constantly, Yeah, I mean, the stories are one thing I definitely have a lot of. I think one thing, too, that really was another important time in my life was when I was in my 20s, and now I'm committed to the used car lot. I had a friend who, he was in the used car business too, and he left. And I wind up seeing him one day at a 7-Eleven. And I said to him, hey, how you doing? He goes, fantastic. I go, really? He goes, yeah, man, the heck with those used cars. I'm selling new cars, man. Look outside. Look at my demo, a brand new, whatever, a 1980, whatever, Chevy. Boom, right? I said, really? He goes, yeah, man, I'm making $2,000 a week, man. This is the greatest thing I ever did. They love me there. And he went on and on and on. And I was happy for him. But I went home that day and I felt really, really low. I felt really bad. And I said, you start reevaluating your own situation. Yeah. And you're like, wow, this sucks. Now you're looking around and everything looks black, Yeah. Look at this terrible car. This life of mine, it sucks. It this, it that. And well, what happened was months later, I wind up running into him where else? Getting a coffee at the 7-Eleven. And this was probably about 5 months later. And I ran into him again and I said, hey, buddy, He goes, hey, Danny, So I said, and I'll try to keep this one clean. I says, how you doing? How's the new car store? He goes, screw them. So what happened? They screwed me, man. They were taking money back from me. They took away my demo. They promised me this. They never gave it. I wind up going to another place, and it's the same crap over there. So the moral of that story that I picked up in life is that just because someone is in a peak right now doesn't mean they're going to stay that way.
Yeah.
And same goes for us, right? Just because we're riding high, boy, old man karma's waiting around the corner. So that always stuck in my mind.
Yeah, it's a good story. It gets back to the accountability and the keep learning and just keep putting the time in. Good things will come from that. So that's good.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Help Me on Middle Age Podcast. We'd like you to, yes, we got it right there. The Rockstar used car dealer. Hey, Dan, if our
The
audience
Rockstar
wants
wannabe.
Rockstar, if the audience wants to find you, do you have any social media handles, and you want to plug that website one more time?
Yeah, I mean, everything is, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, doesn't matter. Buying the book, if you're interested in buying the book, purchasing the book, go to weloveusedcardealers.com.
Nice.
Good.
Simple.
We'll put the website in the show notes, and we'd like to thank you for coming on. We'd like to ask our listeners, please scroll down, hit the like button, the thumbs up, share on social media. We're trying to build a little bit of an audience here, and it's just great. The more people involved, the better guests we can get, and the larger the audience is growing. It's really great. We'd like to thank Dan Lacey for coming on.
Yeah, definitely,
And
Dan.
absolutely,
Thank
really
you, guys.
appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Until next time, this is the Help Me on Middle Age podcast. We'll see you next time. Take care, guys.
Great. Thank you.